Hey everyone, this is Gabe Biderman from National Parks at Night, and tonight we are going to be talking about light painting. All right, so first things first, we can't take a picture without a camera and a lens. So where do I start with all that? Well, to be honest, if we're just focusing on light painting, any camera and any lens will do. You can use a DSLR, we can use a mirrorless, you can even use an advanced point and shoot. And guess what? I've even actually seen some pretty creative light painting stuff with phones that have extended shutter speeds for longer exposures. Now, newer cameras, obviously for the last 2 to 3 years, will yield better image quality than the older ones. So obviously if you want to up your game, get the latest. As far as lenses go, well, what's your focal length? What do you like shooting? I generally like wide angle images, but with light painting, again, we can kind of do whatever we want. And we can bring a kind of a kit lens that gives us a lot of versatility at night. We don't need the astro-specific lenses, fast, wide lenses, because again, we are adding the light to it. We're not trying to soak in the light from a dark sky. The most important thing a night photographer needs, besides the camera and lens, is the tripod. We need something rock steady to place our image-making machine on. Now, there's carbon fiber, there's aluminum, there's over 500 tripods to choose from. Which one is best for me? Well, first off is your budget. You know, aluminum is gonna be less expensive than carbon fiber. Carbon fiber saves you a few pounds, so if you hike around or wanna walk around a lot, that's gonna be key. Really, the most important thing after budget is what fits your height. And when we think about the tripods, look about how high it gets without the center column raised, and make sure that that's about 6 to 10 inches shorter than your eyes, not your head, your eyes. So this one right here is really, really comfortable for me. It doesn't get right up to my eyes, but I can comfortably just kind of lunge in or step into the image and work from here. So what are we going to paint light with? Well, how about a flashlight? Almost everyone has one in their home or in their camera bag. I'm a big fan of the Coast HP5R. This small flashlight packs a punch. It has a high power setting, it has an SOS and a low power setting. So I like the versatility of having a high and a low power setting, so I could kind of finesse light in or step back and get a big burst of light. But even more importantly is the zoomable head on the Coast flashlight. So I can really treat it like a paintbrush and either use a wide brush or kind of zoom in for a tighter brush and finesse the light in there. Also, most of the flashlights are LED and read a little blue in the scene. I generally don't like that type of light in most of my images, so I put a warmer gel on it. I put a CTO half-cut gel, which kind of makes that kind of just perfect light for me, a nice little warm swath of light that's gonna come in and paint the scene. Now, if we think of the flashlight as a sort of a hard brush, we also sometimes might want to bring a softer light or softer brush into the scene. And the LED panel technology has just been spectacular and just getting better and better. And one of my favorite lights for the last year has been the Luxley Viola. This is a LED panel that I can kind of dial in any color temperature from 3,000 to 10,000, or with a flick of the switch, dial in any color of the scene. What makes this light different than a flashlight is, again, look at how soft this light is. And even if I kind of go all the way up to, let's bring it back to a color temperature, this is at 100% power, okay? The flashlight will give us a more focused beam with more contrast there, whereas the LED light is a wider and softer spread of light. An additional accessory that you might want to add to your night kit is the Velo Shutter Boss. Now, this Shutter Boss basically helps you go beyond 30 seconds. Almost every camera out in the market can go up to 30 seconds, but then after that, we're living in bulb mode. And that's where the Shutter Boss comes into play. We can program in any time up to 99 hours, set it for a time lapse, or basically give us more than 30 seconds to go around and paint with light in a scene. Now that we've got the gear, how do we see? and focusing is always tricky at night. The quick tip that I can give you, especially when we're working with subject matter that is this close, is to use a flashlight, because we cannot see in live view. We can't see with it unless we have an LED light on, nor can we see with it through the viewfinder. So if we go into live view, put the flashlight on, go into autofocus, okay? And put the autofocus point around someplace with contrast, like this line right here or there. And then we can get our green box of focus, confirm that it's in focus. Then don't forget to turn off the focus as well, because there'll be no contrast, there'll be no light, and we have locked in that specific focus. So by using that flashlight to help us focus and also compose, because again, we can also use the flashlight to kind of help us see what's in the rest of the scene, now we're ready to make our first exposure. And before we add any light painting, let's get a base shot of the ambient light that's in the scene. Okay, so there's not a ton of light back here, but there is a little bit bouncing around. Let's see what light we're working with. And what's wonderful about the digital cameras is that the meters can collect so much light these days. I've risen up my ISO to make my sensor even more sensitive. It's at 3200, and I'm at aperture 5.6. And my meter is telling me that it's going to be around 15 seconds for me to collect the ambient light in the scene. So once we get that shot, then I can see if we need to add light to it, or if we have enough as is. So the 15-second exposure shows a very flat light that's being bounced around. We don't have a spotlight, there's not a street light right there or anything like that. So we've just collected a lot of just ambient bouncing light, which is yielding kind of just a very flat and, shall I say, boring image. So how can we make that exciting? How can we put our imprint on the scene? Light painting, okay? So first, let's try the easier method of putting in that Luxley LED light and having that kind of add some light into the scene. Now, the first trick on putting light into the scene is don't have it right behind the camera. That is the flattest type of light, when it just comes right on. We call it light painting, but I actually like to call it shadow painting. And if we can get the light source, whatever it might be, at a 45 to 90 degree angle, then we have light kind of sweeping in from the side and creating, revealing texture and detail, but also creating interesting shadows. So whenever I'm working alone, I always bring a light stand so that I can have the versatility of putting the light at different angles, because we don't always want it just coming from the ground. So I brought with a compact light stand. I've got the light set up, and really, with this Luxley light, I'm gonna put it, this is at 1% power. Let's start with 1% power and see how much light we get in the scene. Okay, so here I am, and I'm taking a look at the light, how it's coming in. I always wanna direct and see how the light painting is coming in from the camera, okay? So we have it coming in from the angle. I'm gonna click on for the 15 seconds of the exposure, 1% Luxley. So can you believe it? 1% was actually too much light. I had the light going on for the whole exposure, but guess what? I can control it from their app. So I'm gonna just take another picture and only have the Luxley light be on for like 5 seconds of the 15-second exposure. And 3, 2, and 1. So that's looking better. I still a little hot on this left side, but the Luxley light for only 5 seconds and at this angle is raking across, and it's pulling out some of the nice texture and detail on the rust and paint that we have here. However, when I do look at it some more, it's still lacking punch. And how can we add that more contrast, that more punch into the scene? With a flashlight. Okay. Well, that one is definitely my favorite. As you can see, with the flashlight, I was able to zoom in and really place the light where I wanted it to be. The light didn't spill out as much because I also used my hand as a flag, so it wasn't hitting the background. And I really just have, the front of this piece right here really sticking out, and it has the most texture, the most contrast, and the most shadow painting in it. So when we are in a completely dark room with no ambient light, like this abandoned control tower, the light painting options are endless, and it's us bringing the light. However, I do need a little light to work, so if you can flip that on. All right, so our exposure can be whatever we want. Really, the key factor is just giving us a long enough shutter speed that we can kind of put the painting in. So I've adjusted my ISO to get a cleaner base ISO of 400, still kept my aperture 5.6, kept it for 15 seconds, but the 15 seconds isn't adding any ambient light to the scene, it's just giving me time to walk to that 45 to 90 degree angle and put in my flashlight light painting. And that's the cool thing about light painting is we can be so creative and we can kind of do anything. So experiment with this at home. Turn off the lights in your room, okay? And start playing with light. I hope that these tips will help inspire you to give light painting a try. Now, the biggest advice that I can actually give you is to have fun. Have fun and experiment. Try different light sources, try different colors of light. We didn't even discuss light writing, which is a whole other video in itself. But experiment and have fun with it. And remember, when you light paint, you're putting a bit of your personality, you're painting that into the scene. So thanks for joining us. I'm gonna go around and explore this place some more. See you next time.